Something that we really encouraged in the Leaders and Laggards report is for every state to figure out what its needs are. So whether that be a focus on associate's degrees, bachelor's degrees, and then what programs does the state most need in those areas. So you would hope to see that a state would pay attention to what proportion of students are needing associate's degrees versus bachelor's degrees, but we would hope that every high school student has some type of post-secondary training to either be college ready or career ready. We think so. We actually saw in the presentation today that there is extreme job growth in the state of Nebraska over the next couple of years, with over 100,000 jobs that require some type of post-secondary credential. So that can have a lot of impact on Nebraska's economic competitiveness overall. The area that Nebraska received an F in was for its policy environment. So we looked at a variety of state policies that we think that Nebraska could have some room for improvement. One of which is to have a great credit transfer and articulation policy, which the state does not currently have. If a state is better able to allow its students to transfer from one institution to another, it really streamlines the system and decreases the number of courses that students have to retake if they're going from a community college to a university, and can certainly make a huge difference for Nebraska students. Another area to consider is to tie some funding for institutions to outputs versus inputs. We have a lot of focus on enrollment right now, and we need to be thinking more about outcomes, what's happening to our students during their time in college, and then how can they do even better after college, and tracking that data. I think one area that we found across the board needs a lot of improvement is in the area of transparency and accountability. So we found that very few states collect learning outcomes and gains over their time in college and then make that information public. So while some states actually do track what their students, what type of competencies they're gaining in college, they're not putting that information out there to the public for both the sake of taxpayers, policymakers, but then also the consumers to be making those important decisions on where they want to spend their higher education investment dollars. So transparency and accountability is certainly an area that all states need to improve, Nebraska being one of them, to make sure that consumers have the right information so that they can figure out what to do after they graduate. One state that I was really impressed with is found right here in the Midwest, and that's Minnesota. They have a fantastic consumer information dashboard so that students can see how states are progressing by the institutional level to see what types of programs are offered, what are the graduation rates for those programs, what is the likelihood of a student being employed after finishing that program, and really making it very user-friendly, which is not something that we saw very often. The state of Texas also does a really good job. They have what are called online institutional resumes so that a student can decide what sector they're really looking at. Are they looking at 2-year institutions or 4-year institutions? And then to see, again, what programs are available and how they might do in those programs following graduation. So those are two great examples of states that are doing a good job of measuring outcomes and then also making that data public, because that's a very important second piece there. We really need the help of policymakers to be pushing for this better data, but also to encourage partnerships. That's something that we have found both on the bachelor's degree side as well as the associate's degree side have a lot of success if an academic community can bridge with the business community. And we feel like state policymakers, if they were to be more vocal and encouraging in these partnerships, we would see more people come together. But the data piece really is the important one that we think that state legislators could really have a big impact on pushing for better quality data, but then also that dissemination piece is so key.